Greetings, school directors and friends of public education. Thanks so much for joining us for WSSDA's InSession Live. We host this webinar every Thursday from 12 to 1. We are so grateful for those of you who are able to attend today or who have attended previously or in the future. Please note that this entire webinar will be recorded for those members who aren't able to be with us live today but wish to benefit from the learning. So thanks for being here. We want to acknowledge that our public schools and facilities operate on the traditional lands of Indigenous peoples. As we engage in the 2025 legislative session, we remember that the lands of our state capital were cared for by the people of the Squaxin and Nisqually tribes. We make these acknowledgments to open a space of recognition, inclusion, and respect for our sovereign tribal partners and all Indigenous students, families, staff, legislators, and board members in our communities. In the know, yesterday, our two best funding bills at this point in the legislative session are versions of Senate for both material supplies and operating costs and special education. They were heard in the House Appropriations Committee yesterday, and three of your four board members, board officers, were there to represent the organization as a whole: Sandy Hayes, Nikki Otero-Lockwood, and Melissa Beard. And you can actually watch their testimony, and I would call it expert testimony, by clicking on both of those links. I was able to go back into the TVW recording and capture the brief but mighty presentation that they provided as a trio. They were the leadoff hitters, if you will. It is baseball season, and therefore baseball references are in play. They were the leadoff hitters for both bills yesterday and really set us up for a successful game. So please watch that and learn from their modeling and hopefully gain some inspiration and hope as a result of their insight as well. So with that, we have a very full agenda today and some VIPs who are here to share some insights, learning, and expertise with us. We're going to kick things off with your colleagues from Central Kitsap School Board and Bremerton School Board, Breezy Mitchell and Dr. Karen Bolton. They are here to share with you about their experience planning for and implementing their own Director Area Day on the Hill. And I am not aware of any other school director leaders from across the state who have done a Director Area Day on the Hill. I know many of you have done your own district days on the Hill. All of those are good. I wanted you all to see how these two masterfully organized for a day on the Hill. Highly organized materials, which are replicable, and I will put in the chat. So I'm going to turn my screen off and hand it to Breezy and Karen to tell us all the things they know about this.
Well, thank you for having us. I'm Karen Bolton from Bremerton School Board.
I'm Breezy Mitchell from Central Kitsap School Board.
And I'll go ahead. So, can you guys see us okay? So we have a PowerPoint. We'll go ahead and share that with you guys in the Dropbox in a second. Well, maybe we can share it now. Oh, yeah, we can.
I just made you co-host. Sorry, I didn't.
Okay, thank you. So it's not working. You want to talk a little bit about I get this set up?
So Dr. Bolton and I, we are working in DA4 and we've kind of split the responsibilities. So Dr. Bolton has a good relationships with a lot of our legislators already. And so she coordinated Day on the Hill. And then I take on the role and I do the weekly updates that I send out to board presidents and board legislative reps. And so that's how we've kind of been dividing our responsibilities as DA4 reps. And so are you ready to share that?
Oh, it's not going to share, but that's okay.
Okay.
So, but I can tell you the most important part of any of the Day on the Hill was our collaboration, was us meeting and talking about how we want to divide and conquer the work. The biggest thing is the work actually started, and this work was a year before and meeting and getting to know our local legislators.
Mhm.
That was really the most important thing. And so the other thing that we did is we made sure we had a document, an Excel spreadsheet that had all of our DA4 ledge members and elected officials and what positions what they hold, as you can see here with Mr. Addison Richards, what he sits at, housing, agricultural, where he went to school. So it was important to have these little notes and things that we share with everybody. We actually made sure we verified a lot of the legislative representatives who are going to be representing their boards. But the other thing we did is we had one of the assistants for school districts send out a doodle poll with what date works for them on Day in the Hill. If you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so my superintendent's executive assistant offered to send out a doodle poll to the superintendents and to the legislative reps and board presidents to see if we can find a couple dates that worked well for everyone, because there is so many districts in our DA4, and so we were able to narrow it down to a couple dates and then see what would work for people, and then eventually we narrowed it down to our one date.
So once we got that one day, I set aside a day and a half to just get down and call and email each representative for which was actually, I think, just four areas. And I actually emailed their assistants because we all know that legislators are so busy. The people who are running their offices are the people who are going to make or break this. So I created an Excel spreadsheet with their names and all the information. And then I just sent out an email, and whoever responded first with the time, I plugged it into the Excel spreadsheet, and it actually ended up working out. And if there was one thing I learned about that process is be flexible, because 4 days before we were supposed to go, one of the representatives was not going to be able to make that time. So we had to make some adjustments. We did not have any overlapping time. The only thing we didn't have is a lot of time to eat lunch. But that just goes with the Day on the Hill. So you have to be ready to go. The other thing is we worked with our superintendents to get student representatives that go with us. That was the key piece right there, because we knew right then and there we didn't want to be the one speaking.
Yeah, and they did a great job, and that took a lot of planning. So once we had a date, the superintendent executive assistants really got on all the field trip paperwork, and so that I believe your superintendent was a chaperone. I was a chaperone for my students, but getting all that paperwork approved takes a few months. So that's a good thing to keep in mind when you're bringing students.
The other thing is you bring your superintendent. So really kind of we sat in the background. As we went into each appointment, we sat down, I agreed with the legislators that came in. I made sure the students sat right in front of the legislators, and then the rest of us in the back. And then I had the superintendents to do, because they know more of the data and things like that. But before we did any of that, we did a group photo right there in the hall, and then kind of do a quick debrief on how the day is going to go. We want the students to speak. We asked the superintendents, is there something you want to say? Because I just want to make sure their voice is heard as well. And we have one West Sound Tech, which affects all of the districts in the whole area in the peninsula, is in need of urgent funding. And so we allowed the students to speak. Then the superintendents anchored it with that, and then I made sure our students gave handouts to the legislators and some swag, little stickers and stuff like that. They like that.
And then an important part was for the students, we briefed them on the bills and the big three, and then just some other bills that WASDA is watching with some explanations. And then they came up with their own stories that kind of dovetailed really nicely into both of those bills.
Yes.
And then we made sure to thank the Senate for pushing those bills through their side, and just reminded the representatives that we appreciate their support.
And I will tell you, If you don't think the marketing, and Marissa, I don't think you know this, but one of the legislators said the big three, like,
Oh yeah.
I don't know what you guys are doing hammering that home, but they're very inundated and they're very aware of the big three in our ask. So that's what was really cool. But the stories, we want to make sure not just to come with, we need money, you're not doing this. We want the students, they came up with these stories. That was really, really cool. And it got them very energized. And, you know, the more and more it went on, that was really kind of cool. It was very organic.
Yeah, they did a great job.
Yeah.
And I really think the legislators appreciate hearing from them versus us.
Right. But you know, as I said, the connection you need to make with your legislators starts now. So as soon as they're out of session, invite them to any school function that you have. I even reached out to one of the legislators who was from a different party than me and had him come swear me in when I got reelected. And so you got to build those relationships ahead of time. And I learned that one time sitting in a ledge committee meeting, and someone made that comment. And so from that, I sat at that meeting texting legislators and say, hey, let's go have coffee.
Yeah.
And I give them my private cell phone number, not my district cell phone. And they've called me about things or want to meet up. And you always make sure the day after I sat here and I sent emails out to them, thanking them. And then I invited them to our West Sound Tech. And just to keep that open lines of communication open. And I made sure to take the pictures, post them on social media, and then tag them because they just, you know, they're out there doing a lot of work and it's a thank you for them. And I really appreciate them spending time. And I know, shout out to Senator Drew Hansen, who always seems to derail my meetings, goes off script, but he was so intrigued with the students. He actually gave us 30 minutes instead of the traditional 10 or 15.
It was really nice.
It was really nice. And I thanked him for that. So I'm going to deliver him some donuts here whenever he's done, because he likes to eat food. So
yeah. And then our students are doing paper thank you cards that are going to be sent off to their offices as well.
Oh. Anybody have any questions for us?
I think there is a question in the Q&A. Let me check it out. There was a request to be sure that resource was in the chat because someone joined a little bit late. So I'm going to make sure it's in there. What I really appreciate so much about all the work that you did, soup to nuts, right? From start to finish, just the coordinating takes so much work, all that behind the scenes stuff. But then you also created a document to help support all of you who were going there in person, and that serves as a model to other school boards across the state on how you can put together something that's not complicated. There was a lot of cutting and pasting going on. It's really time and capacity, I recognize, which you have a limited amount of. So thank you for creating space to do that work. And even though your meetings with legislators right now may or may not change what the final budget outcome is this session, the fact that you came to them during the legislative session, you brought students, you shared your stories, that's relationship building that will benefit all of you in the interim, and then again next session and on and on. So there's no right or wrong time to build relationships. It has to start sometime, and then you have to just keep it up. So I just really am so grateful for all the work that you put into that and for creating some models for others. I was also really impressed, Dr. Bolton, that you sent a thank you. I think it was the same day, if not immediately the day after.
The next day.
Yeah. So all of those things take so much work, each little step, so or big step, as the case may be.
Well, I can tell you have to wear comfortable shoes.
Yeah.
Because as I saw Senator Wellman, I ran down the hallway and jumped in the elevators. The doors were closing to have a conversation with her. And my superintendent was behind me, but she wasn't quick enough.
Yeah, she didn't make it in the elevator.
You're like, bye.
Yeah, bye. Yeah. So thank you so much. But thank you, because it was during one of the sessions that you led that pushed me to develop a deeper relationship with all our local legislators. So that was all you. Thank you.
Great. Yeah, I mean, to be on a text basis with them, to be able to message them, Yeah, that's the ultimate, right? That you've got one
Yeah.
another's cell phones, and if you text them, they'll respond. That's the key,
Yes,
right? That they
yes.
respond.
Yeah.
And I also just love your messaging. We didn't cue this up intentionally, but I know you had brought students, and the fact that you just remarked that really without the students, you might have only gotten 10 or 15 minutes, but you got a full 30 because legislators want to hear from
Yes.
the people who are really our customers, right? Within the system.
And we made
Yeah.
sure to have the message that it was that we had cool scene. So we had one district
Yeah.
that was way out, and I think they only have maybe 200 or 300 students,
Yeah.
but they bought 4 students.
Yeah.
And so and we made sure to keep the students together as much as possible, and a couple of superintendents, but it was a lot of fun. But we messaged it out to the whole DA, and so we had the 26th, the 35th, and the 23rd
Yeah.
legislative
Wow.
district.
Yeah.
That's great. That is really amazing. Excellent. Good. Well, anything else you would want us to know before we actually move into the presentation from students per your insights?
I'm good.
We're good.
We're good. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you both so much. Appreciate you. Okay, I also did upload into the chat a Word version of the documents that we shared. There's also a PDF if you want that. The PDF isn't uploading into the chat for everyone, but the Word version is there. So let us know if you have any trouble downloading those, and I can send them to you via email. So with that, I don't want to waste any more time. I want to get our VIPs here on the screen. We have Carter McKnight, Aditi Marhali, and Abby Koch, all student board reps in their own districts, and also members of the Student Rep Network, and also in leadership roles with the Student Rep Network. Abby, I saw that you were having some trouble with the background. I'll see if I can help figure that out while I turn to Carter and Aditi. I made both of you hosts, so you can drive the PowerPoint unless you'd like me to. What is your preference?
I think I'll try sharing my screen here,
Okay,
if that works.
absolutely. I'd be happy to have you drive it. Oh, good, Abby, you got it figured out. Great. Okay, I can see it. Looks great.
Okay, is it working?
Yep, sure is.
Okay, starting off, here's our presentation, Amplifying Authentic Student Voice. So this is kind of like if you don't have a student rep, here are some tips towards getting student reps and how to do it effectively, because we all know that you guys want to have student reps in the most effective way. And then if you have student reps, here are some ways that you can really expand the role and even just minor things for getting more authentic student voice. So I'll start off with the introductions. I'm Carter McKnight. I'm the chair of the WSSDA Student Representative Network, and this is my second year as a student representative on the South Louis School District School Board.
I'm Aditi Manavali. I'm the vice chair of the WSDA Student Rep Network, and this is also my second year as a student representative, and I'm with the Issaquah School District.
Hi, my name is Abigail Koech. I'm a member of the WSDA Student Representative Network, and this is my first year as a student representative for the Richland School District.
This is what our agenda looks like for the meeting. If you have any questions on that, not really, but anyways, moving on. Okay, what are student representatives? This is actually a really good question because recently at the Educational Service District Student Representative Retreat for the Service District 189, this was our question to tackle, and they came up with this definition. A student representative is an individual who chooses to learn from, advocate for, and make decisions that benefit all students from diverse backgrounds. They demonstrate respect and responsibility through their actions and involvement in the community, which are guided by a passion for equitable education and a desire to build lasting connections and pathways to success for all students. This is kind of a definition that goes more into depths of what a student representative is to like a student. This next definition that we kind of made here is more aimed at like as a board, what would a student rep look to you guys? I think so. Basically, student representatives, they attend every board meeting. That's pretty set. But I think one thing that's really important is that they sit at the table with you guys. I know some school boards tend to have their student reps off to the side or at another table or something like that. And while it's good to have student reps at least there, it's really important, I think, to have them at the same table with you guys as equals, so they have the same opportunity to share their voices and stuff. And speaking of voices, usually they'll have the same speaking rights as a board member, which means they get to weigh in on different issues. This is important because there are often issues which you might not think a student representative has valuable input on that, but they have a lot of things that students can share that might not be as obvious to a board member. And then with that, they present student issues to the board and try and just bring a student perspective to all the things that happen there. And they familiarize themselves with the district policies and create reports on student perspectives in relation to those policies so that you can get a fuller depth of what the district looks like and how your policies play into that as a school board member. That's just the basics.
Yeah, so this next segment, we're just going to move into what being a student rep actually looks like. And Carter and I recorded a little video with Marissa, actually. And so we just want to share that video with you all. I think we did a good job of just kind of explaining the role of a student rep and what authentic engagement looks like. So if you want to go ahead and play that video, Carter.
Hi, Carter and Aditi. So grateful for your time, giving us some insights about who you are, who the Student Rep Network is, and opportunities for advocacy going forward. So Carter, since you're the chair, would you get us started? Tell us a little bit about who you are and what made you interested in being the chair of the Student Rep Network.
So yeah, I'm Carter McKnight. I was elected to the SRN chair this year. I've been on my school board. This is my second year, and this is my first year as the SRN chair. I think what really got me into this was when I first joined the SRN, my first year on the school board, I gained a lot of information on how to make real advocacy in my district, how to do advocacy legislatively and in a lot of areas. I got a lot of resources from the Student Representative Network, along with getting to speak with other student reps was so helpful to me. And I wanted to carry on that kind of idea of sharing different stories with people and experience and how to really make change together. And that was really helpful to me. So I wanted to carry that on.
Awesome, Carter. We really appreciate your time and your leadership in that role. And Aditi, you're the vice chair. Tell us a little bit about where you reside and what made you interested in that role.
Sure. First of all, thank you for having me on. I'm Aditi Marihali. I'm from the Issaquah School District, and I've been a student representative. This is my second year. And so what really got me interested in the SRN and being vice chair is attending the WSSDA Legislative Conference. So I attended that conference last year. Unfortunately, this year I was unable to go, but I did go to the WASA, WSSDA, and WASBO conference. And so just being able to see a community of student representatives, seeing, just the possible impact that we can have if we come together collectively, that really made me interested in being the vice chair. And so I'm really excited to be in this position.
Thank you both so much. We're excited to have you in those roles. Carter, would you tell us a little bit about what the Student Rep Network does? You've been involved with it now for, it sounds like your second year. So what did you do last year and what are the plans for this year?
So last year, mainly it just provides a space for students to come and share their own experiences with being a student rep and get to connect with other student reps. Because, there's only really one or two per school district, so it's really important to connect with people from other districts. Last year, our main goal was making an advisory on how to implement student reps in our school district. And this year, our goal is going to be to get as many school districts as possible to have student representation. So it's going to include different strategies like outreach to students in those districts, outreach to school boards and districts without student reps, and just trying to make sure that everyone has representation.
That's great. We're excited to see that work. Aditi, and anything else that you would add about what you've seen the Student Rep Network do or what you're hoping for as a group for this year?
Yeah, so just building on top of what Carter said, we have a really clear timeline of how we're going to carry this project out. We know that we're going to reach out to schools' ASB programs so that we can get students who are really passionate about leadership involved in their school districts and potentially in legislative advocacy. We know that we're going to reach out to school boards that don't have student representation. And so we kind of have a timeline of the steps that we're going to take in order to accomplish this goal.
That's great. And will we see the fruits of your labor by the end of this year? Is that the goal?
I hope so.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. Awesome. We're excited to support you in that and to see the results because it'll be helpful to so many districts. So a curious question as it relates to the student rep network, or as in your experience as a student board rep within your own school districts, what do you think good advocacy looks like when authentic student voice is engaged? And Aditi, why don't you take this first?
Yeah, sure. So I think good advocacy, occurs on so many different levels. It occurs in the classroom, it occurs in each individual school, and then it occurs on the district level. But I guess for our purposes, what good advocacy looks like is when school district administrators, school board members, um, kind of advocate keeping students in mind. Um, and so that can include having student representatives like us advocate with them. But that also doesn't, I mean, it's not just limited to that. It also means reaching out to students in your own district and asking them what issues do they face on a daily basis and how does advocacy truly impact them, their stories, not just getting more funding because, it'll make our schools better, but actually understanding that students are behind this. And the reason that we're advocating is so that we can better each student's education.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. Carter, what would you add?
Yeah, I strongly agree with Aditi's perspective on that. I think it's really important to keep students at the center of it. They're the reason that we do a lot of this work, and that's why we're trying to legislate, is to try and make students' experience at schools better. And that's why you gotta make sure that your stories and your experiences that you're sharing with your legislators and advocacy are always centered on the students, and not also someone's perceived idea of what a student experiences in school, but what the students are telling you their experiences are in school, and accepting that, and then carrying those stories and experiences and giving them to the legislatures and saying MSOCs aren't just important because of insurance and other costs, but they're important because they impact students in this exact way. And we've talked to students and we know how this is now impacting that. And you're connecting those dots between the more obscure, like formula stuff and the actual student experience. And that's what really drives the change.
That's cool. So well said. And maybe even better yet, bringing a student along to have those conversations with legislators might be even the best delivery of that kind of information, but maybe a both and. Thank you
Most
so
definitely.
Yeah, thank you so much for that insight. I think what I would offer to our members who are listening is that if you have a student board rep now, please be sure that they're plugged into the student rep network. And if you have questions about how to do that, you can email WSSDA staff at strategicadvocacy@wasda.org. And if you don't have a student board rep yet, you should just ask Carter and Aditi and their fellows on the student rep network. We will also be sending out with this video resources for how you can start a program. And it sounds like there's going to be
Awesome. Let's go to the next slide, please.
Oh, sorry, I was muted. I'm saying I'm just gonna pause that because we're about to give the same resources that she's giving there
even more.
in one of these
Hi,
next
Carter and
slides.
Aditi.
There we go.
So one of the most crucial aspects to being a student representative, and something that I do and that my fellow student representatives do as well, is something called the student report. So what these are detailed reports that we send to the school board on student life, on perspectives that we have in relation to district policies. And so really the reason behind this is so that we can amplify our student voice, and so that we can bridge the gap between policymakers, so that's you, and us. A lot of students at school don't know what's happening at the district. And you could say the same the other way. The district administrators might have an idea of what's happening at schools, but they don't truly know until a student actually tells them. And this is why the student report is so important. Um, it's because it's a firsthand perspective to the board on what a student goes through on a daily basis and how their policies could be adjusted to better support student needs. So if you scan the QR code on the screen, it will take you to an example of a student report. The way that we do it in the Issaquah School District is each student representative reports on 3 to 4 policies a year. And so that's anything from the technology policy, from equity to discipline to facilities, really just covers the broad range of policies in the district. The one that is linked here is on one of our district's results. It's basically the overarching goal for our district. And this one in particular is on academics. So if you want to go ahead and scan the QR code, it'll take you to that. And that's just a good example of what this is. The way that we do these is we typically either survey our student body or we host focus groups of our student body and just kind of listen to their perspectives on that particular topic, which we're reporting on. We compile it into a report. We present the raw data to the district as well as the condensed data. And then we really present 3 to 4 takeaways. And so these reports are sent to the board before each board meeting, but we also present these reports publicly at the podium at the board meeting.
And I found that these reports, when you share at the meetings where they're shared, it really moves the conversation. When sometimes the conversation might be far from students or like more financial, it brings the conversation back to being like, how do we prioritize the students in this? The advisory vote. This is my favorite one, and it's really important to me because in my district, I have worked to advance the advisory vote. Basically, the advisory vote it doesn't actually count as a vote, but it goes before before the school board members, and it allows the students to put in how they would advise a board member vote on very specific policies and all policies basically. It's really good for just getting stuff on the books on how students vote. It gives students a chance to express the way they fall on certain votes and stuff. It also does go into the records, which is really important to just having that.
So one thing I would add is I also I actually advocated for the advisory vote in my district. Last year we did not have any advisory votes, and this year we do. And it's really an awesome opportunity for students to make their voice heard in a way that's quantitative rather than just qualitative. Sometimes it's tricky for students to actually insert their voice into the board meetings, especially when, like Carter said, the meetings are super financially oriented or very logistical or even political. Um, but this advisory vote just gives students an opportunity to share their perspective where otherwise um, the board might not be able to effectively hear from them. And the way that we do this in at least my district is these advisory votes are anonymous, just so that students don't have to face any public pressure on the way that they vote in relation to topics. And we vote on almost all topics that the board votes on, excluding things like, um, you know, appointing a new board president, for example. Um, but yeah, these are really for a consultative purpose, just to highlight student perspectives on issues in a way that you wouldn't otherwise get to see, especially if it's really hard to speak up in the middle of a board meeting. So,
Wait, Abby, did you have something on that slide?
I did not have anything on that slide, but I will say that I think that having it be anonymous is especially important because a lot of the times people, I guess school board representatives might not want to say exactly how they feel about certain topics or something like that. Sorry, my school. But I think it's especially important for it to be anonymous so people don't feel pressures as IDT highlighted. That's definitely been something that my school board struggled with last year, but we've definitely improved on it, and we've given a space where school board members do feel more, school board reps feel more comfortable to say how they feel. But yeah.
All right, next slide. Legislative involvement. This is kind of what the people from the last presentation kind of said, but students when they get in this position as student representative, they get to really get involved in the legislative process, and it is very it's personal for us because this is like my education, what programs I have, what programs I don't have, and state of my building and everything. So it really does impact is a lot more impactful on students. So it gives students the opportunity to get involved legislatively, and they get to experience kind of democracy firsthand. I think it's a really important thing for that, getting to experience how these things work and giving students chances to learn how the legislative process kind of works. And I know that me personally, I always end up going around to all of the advisories and getting input on certain bills and stuff, and being like, education funding here, and I get to carry that kind of thing back to my district to kind of educate people on that too. So it's a district-wide impact that it has. And then here's a picture from, what's it called? A student representative day on the Hill we hosted, where it was all student planned, and students went down and lobbied for more education funding, which I thought was really fun.
Can I just add that even if students aren't hosting their own day on the hills like this, if they're just going with the board members from their own district, I think it's really important that students are the ones that are actually speaking, because legislators want to hear authentic student perspectives and authentic student stories rather than, like I said, what the board thinks that students go through. They really want to hear, why is special education so important from a student perspective, not just from a board's perspective. And that's just one example. So yeah, really giving your students the opportunity to actually speak to the senators and representatives while they're there is super important.
Why are student representatives important? This is a good one.
Yes. So when I first think of why student reps are important, I think of advocacy. And I want you guys to think to yourself, do you guys feel like you're truly advocating for the students correctly? And I think that looking at student representatives, it's really important to see that with having student representatives, you really get to see the reactions of students. First, well, you really get to have that perspective in meetings, and it's very important. I know that with my experience, a lot of school board members don't necessarily know exactly what's going on within schools, but students will really give that perspective of how things can inform your school board on current policy and on future policies. I think that students really do have the best perspective when it comes to policies. I mean, we're doing this for students, so they really get to know how other students feel about this. Also, how teachers feel about certain policies, and it helps to improve the policies and creating, I guess, not wasting as much time fixing and amending things just because of certain opinions. I mean, any of you guys can jump in on this and add more notes.
Yeah, I think I agree.
Moving on. I will be talking about benefits for school boards and the student body. School boards are more informed, like I said, more informed with decision making, more accurate decision making when it comes to policies, direct student feedback. Really detailed reports during school board meetings are so important. So school board members really know what's going on within schools. I must reiterate that. And students feel more connected with school boards if there is someone that they know on the school board, or if there's students who are there saying, like, I guess, informing the people around them about what's going on within the school district. And for the student body, honestly, it's a better representation of the student body and what they want. A lot of the times, people have blinders on. They might not know what's going on within the schools. I know I've been able to give a better perspective, especially for people in my demographic. And I think it bridges the gaps between students and policymakers. It's now a lot of the time there is a big disconnect between the policies and the students and how well it actually affects them, or how accurate it is. And students really do love seeing other students be successful, and also advocate for each other. I've definitely had different comments from other students saying how much they really appreciate my perspective and advocacy.
Oops. Okay. What is authentic student engagement? So we have a little video here that we put together, which just includes like examples of how a student might give their input on certain policies and stuff. This is show you what like a student representative looks like in action. So I'm just gonna hit play.
So I think next we will have our student advisory report, and Tiffany and Abby are going to do that for us tonight.
So we talked about alternative learning experience programs, and Mr. Shaver shared information on Rivers Edges High School, which is a project-based learning program that runs on trimesters, and the class sizes are small and students attend about 30 hours a week.
So I'll be talking about the discussion that followed. So we talked about social emotional learning and how it's very successful in Rivers Edge, also in HomeLink, and how it's embedded in all of their classes. And there's a lot of staff buy-in, not like their staff are very like involved in it. They really do care about the SEL program.
Policy as a community member. Thank you.
I really agree with the idea of don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. I think we really just need something on the books. Because also, this goes back to the statement versus policy thing. I don't think they have to be against each other. Because I think if we look back to some of the things which I really think supported students, I look back to our letter to the WIAA in support of trans athletes. That was something that was basically just a statement to the people, but that showed our students that we were here for them.
The last question, as I referred to earlier, was the open-ended question. And I specifically referred to the bond in this question, asking students if they had any thoughts, comments, concerns, questions on the bond. And overall, I received the response that students were in support of the idea of the bond, but they didn't actually know what the actual investment would be for Liberty. Like they didn't understand the return on investment that they would get for supporting a bond for Liberty in particular. So I think some communication and education on that front would be really helpful. Yeah, you can kind of see the different ways that student representatives are helpful. In the first example with Abby and Tiffany, you saw how they were presenting a detailed report of student perspectives and even of teacher perspectives. In Carter's segment, we saw how he was connecting different ideas together, different policies, and really bringing the student perspective on how policies in the district flow together and what students make of that. And then I guess in my segment at the end, I really brought in student perspective on the bond that our district was running. And so student perspective is really crucial for everything. That includes the financials, that includes tough logistics, that includes daily life. So students' perspective is really, really necessary. And if you don't already have student reps, I hope we've convinced you to add some to your board.
So I think
And okay, now here's the kind of final thing, like what can you do? Okay. Basically create space for your student representatives to engage. This can kind of come in a lot of different ways, but it's making sure that your students feel comfortable to give their input when it's giving input that's like supporting you guys' ideas, even if it's something that's kind of going against what the district is doing. It's really important that you create a space where students feel safe to share that no matter what, so you guys can have a constructive relationship. So like one of the things that I know a lot of boards do is they will look to the student reps sometimes and ask if they have any input during conversations, if the conversation seems to be going fast and not including students, or they'll, when the students might not have as much time to speak. Sometimes what this is really important is meeting before a meeting with your meeting before a board meeting with your student reps, so you guys can talk about like what's on the agenda, what are these things actually doing, what is it, just so you can have a clear understanding of like what's actually happening at the meeting, so your students aren't blindsided, and be open to like what's happening and listen to your students' experiences. This is the really, really important part, is that when your students share something with you, do not dismiss it because you have countering information. you might have gone to the school and done a visit and thought all the facilities were amazing, but if a student says the facilities aren't meeting their function, then you have to kind of listen to the student perspective on that, even if it might go against your perspective, because the student's perspective is the one that's most centered on the school.
I also would like to add that if there isn't as much of a foundation, if you're trying to figure out how to really bring in students who are really active, having a student advisory council is it's very helpful, because a lot of the times we have student advisory councils do reports. The example that we used in the video, I was presenting about a student advisory council meeting and basically the different perspectives. So it's a great way to bring in students who are really active and interested in learning about different school the school districts and what's going on. This is kind of probably we normally have other students involved in school board meetings and student advisory council presentations, but that's a great way to start if you're looking for what to do.
And these are not just resources, I guess. There's the WSSDA model policy and the WSSDA model procedure. And then there's a bunch of resources for student reps on the WSSDA website under the Student Representative Network. These are all really great resources and full of ways you can include student reps.
And I believe this presentation is linked in the Dropbox. So I think you have access to that. And if not, Mercer, is there a way that we can get these into the chat?
Yes, I put the slideshow in the chat, and I will also put,
awesome.
I will also put these links in the chat.
Awesome.
Okay,
So I think I'm just going to move into our Q&A segment. Yeah. So I see a couple questions in the chat, and I guess we can start in the order that I guess I see them in. So I see one from Dave Larson saying, for Issaquah, how'd you ensure that all different students were represented in the focus groups? I guess I can take that one since I'm in the Issaquah School District. So really the way that our school works is we have sessions called advisory times. They're every other week on Tuesdays, and they're like 40-minute sessions, and they have about 20 to 25 students in them, and those students are all in the same grade. And so what we did, me and my fellow rep from my school, is that we split up, and I went to 2 of these advisory sessions, one with juniors and one with seniors. And these advisory sessions, the students that are in them, it is not by academic level, it is not by interest, it is simply by last name. So you're taking a chunk of 20 to 25 students in a grade by last name, and you're able to meet with them and talk to each of them individually or talk to them in a big group, and really hear what they have to say. And so I did that for the junior and senior students, and my fellow representative did that for freshmen and sophomores. And from there, we were able to kind of assemble that input. Carter, Abby, do you want to take another question in the
I'll
Q&A?
take Mandy O'Hara's one. Do you have a general plan of how you go about doing what you do in your school, like how a district will follow a strategic plan? I know usually students will create a general plan for how they're gonna involve student reps at the start of the year, how they're gonna reach out to students at the start of the year. I know in my application process I had to fill out a little form of like my kind of plans for connecting with students. So while it's not like a strategic plan, students do, work on that a bit, I think, is the best way I can answer that question. Anyone else have anything on that? Okay.
I guess I can take Hillary's question. How do you get input from other students about what's happening in the district so that you can share comprehensive perspective on student body at board meetings? What I could say is that, like I said, student advisory meetings is how we really get information about what's happening within the district. A lot of the times what's on the agenda will align with what's going on. what we're going to be talking about at the next school board meeting. It's really a great way to see how different students from different schools get to see, get to, get to see what they think about these certain topics. And also they will have our superintendent in there and vice superintendent or assistant superintendent of secondary schools there, so they can answer any questions that students might have. It's very interactive, and you get to see how students from different high schools and how they think about it, because a lot of the times our school district focuses on comprehensive high schools, but with that we get to see how other people from different our alternative schools also think.
I know one way that I connect with a lot of students is my school has an advisory period where it's used for things like surveys and all sorts of random things throughout the year. So that's like an hour-long period, and I just tend to run around between all the classrooms because I have a smaller school and just talk to students for like 10 minutes or so on one topic, like the bond. I just run around and ask like, okay, students, what do you think of this? I get everyone's input, then go to the next classroom. And that was a really effective way because there was like a more smaller group conversation setting. People are all comfortable sharing with each other in there. So that's one way that I did it. But it honestly varies by school district on how like big your district is, how many high schools there are, how many middle schools there are. It's up to how you want to do it based on your district's circumstances.
Sure. And the one thing that I'd add is that it's really important for student representatives to get input from all students, not just their friends or not just people that have the same interests as them, but really represent the entire student body because we are student representatives. And so we're meant to represent our schools. Yeah. I see another question from Rob saying, how does your district conduct an anonymous advisory vote of student reps? So the way that my district does it, and it might be different for Carter or for Abby, but the way that we do it is we have a Menti poll. It's just a software that allows you to poll individuals. And so we just put that on the big screen or we live stream that. And then the student representatives are able to just select yes, no, or they don't have to select an option if they don't want to a particular policy. And then the total count will be displayed. So our school district is pretty big. We have 8 student representatives, which is a lot. So we'll total an entire count. So maybe there's 4 student representatives that say yes, 3 that say no, and then 1 doesn't vote. And you can see that result on the screen, but you can't see who did what. Maybe that's different for Carter or Abby.
My district's smaller, so we don't have anonymous votes necessarily. We have the option where we can always abstain from votes, like any other board member could. Because there's 2 of us, the board chair just looks over and says, "Can I get your advisory votes?" And then we say yay, nay, abstain. But we can always also go before the meetings and just say, "Hey, here's my position on this vote. Here's how we advise you," and then vote and abstain if it gets pretentious. That is contentious.
Yeah, it's the same for my school district. We only have 2 school board representatives, so it's kind of hard to do it anonymously. But we've just tried to make it a space where it's comfortable to say yes or no. Our school board members reiterate that there's no judgment.
Hey,
Okay.
I see another.
while you're looking at just a few last questions, we have to wrap up just in a couple minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and just ask for just quickly, if you could tell me if you have a list of expectations that you can share for student reps and how you report back to the board. Could each of you field that? And then we'll wrap up for the day so that I can do some closing remarks and move on to a 1 o'clock.
Yes, okay. List of expectations for board reps. Our list of expectations, I guess, is basically just attend all the meetings. And that's really the important part. Also, just like engage with students. I would advise away from any GPA requirements, unless like being a school board member will actively get in the way of succeeding academically. I would advise against that, but mainly just like be at the meetings, represent students, and be authentic. Yeah.
Our school district has an entire policy for that, and I can put it in the chat if you'd like to see. And it is really based on the WSSDA model policy. I hope everybody can see that. Please let me know if you can.
I see it. That's
But
great. And I'll be sure it's
okay,
included in
awesome.
final resources. Yeah.
So yeah, feel free to read through that, and those are our expectations.
Oh, wait, what was the final one again?
How do you report back to the board?
We have I have a couple ways. The student report is one, where we always can give our input on student issues, everything, you know. But also, I feel like the entire time we're kind of reporting back to the board, like every meeting, you know, like a school board member is always representing their constituents. Student reps always representing our constituent interests as students. So we're kind of in a way always reporting back, but the student report would be the kind of more generic answer to that question.
Aditi, Abby, anything you wanted to add there? No?
I don't think so. I did realize that I put the wrong file in, so I'm going to try to find that, but you can go ahead and wrap up, and hopefully I'll get that in before our time is up.
Great. And if not, you can email it to me, Aditi, and then folks can reach out and I can be sure to share it with them. First, before I wrap things up, I just want to thank all three of you so much for your leadership at the local level, with your students, with your school board, in your community, and then also at the state level through the Student Representative Network. Appreciate all of your insights and the resources you shared today. My guess is that the folks who joined today took away something that will help to inform how they work with their students moving forward, that will hopefully make that effort more effective and more enjoyable for everyone. So thank you for sharing your time and your wisdom with us today. Just a couple things I wanted to share with all of you, because you're probably curious, what the heck's going on with the budget? It's a good question. We are seeing the Senate budget come out today, the House budget right behind it. The hearings are already scheduled for next week. I put those into the chat. In between now and then, the education advocates will work together to try to unpack those budgets and see what the difference between the two is. There will be an opportunity to testify supportively of what looks good for us and also where concerns might be. So we will be communicating. Be sure to read our InSession tomorrow, as well as TWIO. Both will be full of information you need. In a nutshell, you may also know that the revenue forecast came out this week. Not a lot to report as it relates to that in terms of it being significantly different from the revenue forecast that came out before the legislative session. In essence, they're looking at a 2.5 IPD continues. They're looking at a decrease of 844 million over the next 4 years. So the way that's different from the revenue forecast in 2024, the last one in 2024 versus this week, is about $1 billion. What's $1 billion these days? Only what we want for MSOC. So not a significant change to the estimate moving forward. The House may intend to use some rainy day funds, but what we know is that we're going to see significant difference between the House and the Senate, and that's what the remaining 37 days will be all about, is to work out those differences. We will definitely see a tax package or revenue package incorporated to all of that, which probably will include property tax increase to pay for LEA. So with all of that, that's a very high level summary at 1 o'clock. I have to sign off for another commitment, but really appreciate all of you being here.